Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me today on our December edition of the USREO Partners Western Regional Call. Our agenda, if this is the first time you've been on this call, our agenda is always the same. We kind of go through any introductions for new members. If Sharon or Lori, I can unmute one or both of you and you can chime in on that. We talk about upcoming events, which as you might imagine is a pretty short section of the call because everything's pandemically canceled or at least postponed. And then we always have a training topic. So hopefully the training topic is what drew your attention to join us today. And that is also in part why I'm recording it, because I think it's going to be good content for everybody. And the gist is, you know, while all of us are unbelievably skilled REO brokers, there's just not much flow, right? And so, as you know, the FHFA has extended it again. We'll talk about that briefly. But while we're waiting for the floodgates to sort of resume, and I don't think it's going to be a flood, but we're certainly going to see an increase, and that'll be good for us. We need to have other business going on. So that's what today's going to be about. So I saw Lori. I will unmute you, Lori. Do you know if we have any new members joining us today? It won't let me unmute you, so you'll have to unmute yourself. Or is there anyone on the call that's a new member? You just want to identify yourself, which I will have to unmute everybody. Anyone? Going? Going once? All right. I'm going to mute you back. In short, we are always in a growth mode as an organization because we always have needs in other parts of the country. So if you know people that are good REO brokers, experienced REO brokers that are not part of this organization, I strongly encourage you to bring them to the attention of both Sharon and Lori, because they will do a masterful job of recruiting us and letting them know all the benefits that our organization provides. I can tell you personally that I've been a member of pretty much every organization out there, and this is one of only two that I hung on to for the reasons that you all know, which is this is probably the highest level of skill and experience, and I just can't say enough about the kind of community sense that this group has. When you need help with something, there's never a shortage of people to help you. So just reach out. All right, enough about that. Conference calendar. If you aren't familiar with it, the USREO Partner website has a great link that you can use that gets you to a calendar. You can see it in a calendar view or a list view. Right now, there's not a lot on it. You know, REOMAC had their auction that ran the last few days, but ended yesterday. So when I did my slide deck, it was still going on, and I didn't bother to take it off. The next event that is coming up is our next Coffee with Clients, and I don't know who the guest is at this point, but I do know the date, and that will be January 14th. So, Angie, I'm going to mute you. And so what'll happen is you'll get an email from Sharon or Lori that says, hey, here's the event, here's the date, and here's the link to register. And you do have to register for that event to get the invite to the GoToMeeting. So just make sure you click on that. The last one was with Lori Garcia of VRM, and it was awesome. She was super candid and transparent. She shared with everybody how to get on their list. She shared the status of their list, which of course they're not adding new people, but she did share that they have sort of a backup list. So if you're not already in their system, you can at least kind of get known to them, and then they will tap into that list when they need to. So just examples like that Sharon is bringing to the table, that these Coffee with Clients have been really, really helpful. So by all means, I encourage you to to make sure you can attend that one. And then the upcoming conference schedule, we simply don't know. A lot of organizations are working on presenting virtually, which I think is a good idea. And I've been to a couple of them, and the technology is such that it's pretty effective now virtually. It's obviously not the same, but it's better than canceling. So stay tuned for that kind of stuff. All right. So this month's training topic, seller lead sources and tools, or more specifically, how to crank up your retail listing volume in a time of historically low inventory. I'm going to see if I can unmute folks and make this a little more interactive. Don't mind muting yourself.
Last couple of months since March, when they've been a little slower, have reduced their agent
network. Go through and do these individually.
Don't even know it. Like, they're not calling us like in the old days. They're saying, fortunately.
Found you. Okay. So the rest of you that are unmuted, by all means, if you're using some of these tools that I'm going to talk about, I would love to get your input and share what's working for you. This is by no means a comprehensive list. This is just a list of what I'm using currently for our firm, and we generate between 300 and 400 leads a month doing these things. So very effective, and I'll show you kind of how we do it and what we're doing. And the reason we're talking about it is because FHFA just announced day before yesterday, I think it was, that they're now extending the moratorium another month. The concerning part of their announcement is that in it, it said January 31st, 2021 at least, right? So read into that what you will, but there's a good chance that it'll get pushed further. All that really does for us is delay the inevitable, at least in my mind, and also make the influx of inventory is going to just keep growing, right? There's an estimated 2.3 million American homeowners that are 90 days down or greater on their mortgage. Not most, but a lot of those are in forbearance. And so it'll be interesting to see what percentage of them are able to get reinstated. But one thing we know for sure, so we're going to see a rise, and we just don't know when they're going to lift that, that moratorium. All right. In the meantime, well, the thing that we want to be thinking about is what are sellers facing, right? What's going through their minds? There's an enormous amount of off-market inventory. We sell about 100 homes a year that never go on the MLS. And it's because we're doing these things I'm going to share with you. But think of it this way. The signs in the yards are just the sellers that have made themselves known and hired an agent. Every other house could have a seller that's interested in selling as well. And what we are going to do is use technology to try and identify those, right? We would all benefit by kind of understanding what those sellers might be thinking or what they're facing. And what they're facing is a golden opportunity, right? In my market, we have less than a month of inventory. The vast majority of listings get multiple offers and escalator clauses and all the riches bestowed upon them when you have a heavily slanted seller's market. Because remember, a balanced market is defined as 4 to 6 months of inventory. So when you have 3 weeks of inventory, you're in an acute seller's market, right? So even if there's an increase in REO, which we know there's going to be, it's still going to be a seller's market because we aren't going to get enough inventory to take us back up to 4 months of inventory, right? So we want to make sure that sellers who are considering selling, not yet listed, but thinking about it, recognize this opportunity, because not only do they have all of these things in their favor, but they also have the buyers enjoying the lowest rates in history, right? So that means buying power that they've never had before. When you have an interest rate in the 2s, you feel like as a buyer that you can afford more, right? And so when you're in a bidding situation like we're seeing, you tend to bid more too. And that's why we're seeing I mean, I had an offer on one of my listings. It was $155,000 over list price, which was 25% of the list price. Right? It's $600,000 list. It came 650, came in at 805. So people are going crazy, right? So it's good circumstance for sellers, and we would like to help them, but how do we find them, right? That's the key. Know who would sell before they've already gone out and hired somebody, right? Who's heard of seller scores? Click on the little raise your hand thing. Well, seller score is actually an algorithm. And we run these algorithms on every home in America, right? And what they do is they help identify sellers who are more likely to be willing to sell in the next 6 to 12 months than their neighbor. A score. So you can literally take every house in America, assign a score, and then sort it and focus your attention on the highest scores. Monica, yes, I am sharing my screen. Is no one seeing my screen? Marissa, I see you're unmuted. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Monica, I think you might just have it minimized. So if you hunt around and look for the Ring Central logo on your status bar, you should be able to find me. All right, so think of it like this, right? You have 1,000 homes. You push those addresses through a computer that runs an algorithm on them and assigns a score from 1 to 1,000, and then you focus on the highest scores and work your way down. Does that make sense? I'll show you how it works, right? So our system is a 763-point algorithm, and it measures how long they've owned the home, what their equity position is, their mortgage balance, children's age, what education level they've attained. It even analyzes their shopping habits. So computers can tell if you're an empty nester and you're more likely to sell than somebody who just bought their house 18 months ago, right? And so using this 763-point algorithm, they will assign a score. And then once you know what the scores are, right? Now you can use this sort of tool to focus on a neighborhood, to simply just generate the most motivated seller you can within a 5-mile radius. Or like a lot of realtors do, they want to be the king or queen of X neighborhood, right? We as REO brokers, we tend to take assets wherever they are, as long as the servicer will let us drive 25 miles to get it, we'll get it. But in the meantime, wouldn't your quality of life go up if you also had 10 or 15 listings that were within a 3-minute drive of your home or your office? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Well, this system would allow you to do that, because you can then assign scores in that same radius and then focus on the folks that have the high scores, right? This also is a wonderful resource when you've got buyers who are frustrated that there's not enough inventory, right? I mean, I've got buyers where we've written and lost. I've got buyers that have a criteria where there's just nothing out there. You know, you can use this sort of off-market system to generate opportunities for those buyers. And now you've got a seller that's happy and a buyer that's happy, and you didn't have to have a bidding war or an escalator clause to do it, right? Because it's an off-market deal. All right, where can you get this sort of information? There's companies out there, right? It's not a free service, but you can buy the system or the data, right? Remine is one of them. First IO was one that we used for a long time, and then Remax entered an exclusive partnership with them. So if you're on this call and you're a Remax broker, hopefully you're already aware of First IO, and if you're not, you should go investigate it. But they do this exact thing that I'm describing, right? Revaluate is another company. And there's others, right? I'm just, sometimes we've tried. Jasper, I'm turning you to mute. You got loud all of a sudden, right? So if you want to take, like you could literally take your own sphere of influence and push them through one of these systems and have scores assigned. And you might have friends or associates that you didn't even realize that their life circumstance and this 763 point algorithm tells you that they probably will want to sell. And think about that for a second, right? If I put my sphere of influence into a system like this and I assign scores, and then of course, post-pandemic, we go to a barbecue or something, couldn't I focus on the ones that had the higher scores and just make sure to talk to them and ask them how life's treating them and ask them, you know, hey, yeah, I haven't done a free market analysis for you on your home in a while. Would you like a free market analysis? And then they go, well, yeah, funny you should mention because Susie and I are thinking about selling, right? And I knew that because of the score. So anyway, the applications are endless, right? You can score strangers, you can score family, you can score everyone in between. Once you know who they are, right? Now you have to get in front of them. So my barbecue example is a way or an example of doing it when they're your sphere of influence. But what if they're a neighborhood that I'm trying to become the king of, right? Well, we use direct mail. We send out between 4,000 and 10,000 letters a week. That's how we generate hundreds of leads a month. And we have a couple different systems. So I'm just going to describe them to you. If any of you are thinking about implementing something like this, send me an email. I'd be happy to share the letters that we send, but I'm going to describe them for this call and in this video. So we call it transaction multiplier. The first one is every listing that we take, we send out 200 letters to the 200 highest scores, and we send out 2 letters 2 weeks apart. So we'll send out 200 letters, and then 2 weeks later, we'll send out 200 more letters. It only costs me 59 cents a letter. So what is that? 340 bucks or something for 400 total letters. On average, out of that 400 piece mailing, I generate 1 more listing and 2 buyers every time I do it. So for 350 bucks, I generate another $30,000 to $40,000 in commissions. Not a bad deal, right? Not a bad program. So that's why we do it on every single house that we list. You could even do it on a house that you didn't list. You can just use any address as the center point, and you can run this algorithm and say, all right, give me the 200 most likely to sell people around this house, right? Then we have another sequence, and this actually ties into last month, I think it was last month's call when we were talking about my moving concierge program, right? Where we will rehab houses and use our money to rehab them, and then the homeowner gets to keep the profit. Well, our second transaction multiplier mailing is actually a 7-piece mailing that volleys between a letter from a realtor that says, hey, I've got a buyer that missed out recently in your neighborhood and your home caught their eye. And then the next letter is, hey, I'm an investor, cash offer, no closing costs, no repairs, close it at a time frame that's acceptable to you. Are you interested in an offer for your home? And then it goes back to realtor, then it goes back to investor, then back to realtor, and back to investor. It is 7 times, right? So program has an unbelievable open rate, but it's also because we're sending them 7 letters. I mean, we even get sellers that call us and say, I get a lot of letters. You know, most homeowners get letters, right? But they'll call and go, I get a lot of letters, but you sent me a lot of letters just from you. And so I'm calling you. And my inside sales team goes, that's great. We're just glad you called. Boom, they book an appointment, right? All right. You can also, instead of using direct mail, you can use skip tracing, right? You can get emails and phone numbers using a paid service through a third party. The one I use is called PropStream. I actually have a referral free trial link on the screen right now if you want to test it out. by all means, shoot a picture of your screen right now and use that link. You can test their system. The cool thing, the reason I like their system is not only is it skip tracing, but it's also, they have integrated direct mail, postcards. They have all kinds of property research, not only core fact, but MLS, IDX data, and they merge the two together. So it's one of the most comprehensive property research tools out there. And then it has all this marketing built on the back end to help you identify properties and then market to those properties. But in there, skip tracing. So feel free to check that out. And then of course, door knocking, right? If I'm focused on like the neighborhood I'm sitting in, if I wanted to become the king of my own neighborhood, door knocking is a really smart way to do it, right? I know plenty of brokers that have built multi-million-dollar businesses on it. I'm not suggesting any of you do it. You guys all have bigger businesses than that, but could you see taking one of your teammates that maybe is just starting out and saying, hey, I'll give you seller scores if you go door knock this neighborhood, and then we'll split the commissions, right? And then they're only knocking on the doors of the people with the high scores, right? So you can really be strategic about focusing your time and your money and your effort on the right addresses because of these seller scores, right? All right. There's also lots of just seller lead generators, right? This is now set aside the scoring models. We can just generate seller leads, right? We can do it using a lot of different vehicles, but most of them revolve around the number one question, right? And I know you guys are already thinking what that question is, and it's because that's the one that gets the most response, right? People can be scrolling through their Facebook feed, and then all of a sudden they see an offer of, you know, find out what your home is worth with just a click. They're stoked, right? Because they're curious. They know the market's been white hot. They maybe haven't checked it for a while, or they just bought it and they're wondering if it's worth more or whatever, right? So there's a lot of companies that have leveraged up that tool, and the biggest of which is Zillow, right? The Zillow's estimate. I actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see a video called Why the Zillow's Zestimate is Always Wrong. And it is, right? AVMs is not the way to do evaluation. We're all better than that. But sadly, a lot of agents trust a Zillow's estimate or some other automated valuation method, and that's just unprofessional, right? But here's the key for this audience, like for our purpose. It still resonates with the consumer. The consumer still wants to know what their home's worth, and the consumer still thinks that a computer can tell them that. What you and I care about is getting the consumer to raise their hand and identify themselves as somebody who's thinking about selling. Because then I can drop them into my CRM. I can start dripping on them, whether they're thinking about selling, you know, in the next 3 days or the next 2 years. I want to get my hooks into them and start demonstrating character and competence, right? Well, how do you think Realtor.com is selling all those leads? They're offering them an online valuation, right? So let's learn from that. Let's go, okay, well, what if I offer them a valuation, but then use that entree to get an appointment and then give a listing presentation, right? So think about what your AVM is going to be. If you already have one, awesome. There are no shortages of them, right? You can just pick one and use it to lure people into paying attention to what you're saying, right? There's companies like Bold Leads where you can set up an account and it will calculate, it'll create ads, run Facebook ads for you, convert and drip on leads that opt in. Another one is Street Text. If you're familiar with that one, that's the one I use. They work wonderfully, right? And it's all about Facebook ads and offering people, hey, what's your home worth, right? So here's an example of a Street Text Facebook ad. And I'm going to show you what the results were from this ad. Really simple ad. If someone wanted to buy your home, would you sell it? Find out its value in the current market. And then down below, find the value of your home, learn more, right? People click on it, takes them to a landing page. And all it's doing is showing them a map of the area where I'm running this ad. So they're like, oh, I live in Kirkland. Yeah, clearly this company knows my neighborhood. And then they're going to click on analyze my property, right? When they do that, I get a lead. And these are squeeze pages, right? So they'll get some information, and then I'll ask for their email, and then they'll get some more information, and then I'll ask for their phone number, and then they'll get some more information, and then I'll get, by that point, I've got 4 data points, which is a lead, right? Name, physical address, email address, and phone. But you can see on here, right? $5.16 per lead for seller leads. Those of you that do lead generation, you know that $5 is a smoking deal for seller leads. I have other lead sources, I pay 30 to 50 bucks a lead. And as long as I'm converting them, that's a no-brainer. I'm happy to spend that. But to get them for $5, holy cow, right? And look at this. Price per 1,000, right? Impressions, reach, 1,263, 18 clicks. And I ran this ad for 5 days. 31 total dollars, 11 leads. So I got 11 addresses, and out of those 11, I got 6 emails for $31. Now I've got a system I use for address only leads, right? Which is what the difference would be. The 5 people that I didn't get emails, I take my act on offline, right? I start sending them letters, mailers, right? Here's an example of the letter. It's got a picture of their home. I now know their name, right? And it says, thanks for reaching out. My goal is to provide you with the most accurate valuation possible with no strings attached. But as I'm sure you know, it's impossible to offer an exact number without seeing your property myself. With that said, I'd like to first offer you the internet's best guess. And then it goes through what the Zillow's estimate is, the Realtor.com estimate, the Trulia, the Redfin, the Homes.com. And then it tells them how stupid those numbers are because they're all, $150,000 apart. And that's the lure that gets them to say, well, yeah, I would like a more specific answer. No cost or obligation, right? But okay, come to my house. Now, I'm pretty good when I'm in front of people, as history has shown. All right. So what do you do, right? What do you do with all this info? Are you going to do seller scores? Are you going to do skip tracing? Are you going to run Facebook ads? Are you going to door knock or have someone on your team door knock? There's a lot of things you can do, right? I actually do most of these. I don't door knock, but I'll run all the systems stuff and I'll send out letters and I'll get appointments. And that's my goal, right? But you have to decide what you want to do and what's going to benefit your business. And I think that starts with taking a step back and saying, okay, do I want to cast a wide net and just generate as many seller leads as I can and maybe even hand them off? Like I do that. I generate leads if they're farther away than I want to go. I give them to an agent in my firm and he gives me half the commission because I generated the opportunity. That's the beauty of this thing, right? But you got to decide what you want to do and then kind of design your strategy around it, right? So I'm going to focus on this area, really tight area, really big area, whatever it is. And then I'm going to have a strategy to get after that targeted area. And I got to decide which systems and resources I'm going to use to do that, right? Could be Facebook ads. The thing about Facebook ads, I'll tell you right now, their anti-discrimination policy basically dictates that you have to do a 15-mile radius of an address. So that map you saw of the Seattle and surrounding areas, that's 15 miles. Well, in Seattle, that's probably 50 cities in a 15-mile radius of Seattle or Bellevue. So think about it, right? And implement.
Ed,
Yes.
this is for a limited budget. Which one would you recommend to start with, or which one is the one that has given you the most results?
Great question. Thank you for asking, Marissa. I would say the direct mail, the transaction multiplier mailing method that I described earlier, where it was 200 letters, 2 weeks apart, so a total of 400 letters. And if I just could do math in my head, I would tell you, but I can't. So $236, I can send out 400 letters and generate 3 deals. So that's the most efficient way. As you saw with that street text screenshot, I was getting those leads for $5. There's more expense to sign up for their system. I think it was like $1,000 or $1,500. But for that expense, I'm now generating cheaper leads too. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And your timing was perfect, Marissa, because now I do want to open it up to questions. Let me make sure I got everybody unmuted. So who has questions for me? Or did I do such a great job that you don't have any? I'm funny to myself, I think. Was this information helpful?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad. I know, you know, we've been doing kind of retail-oriented training for a while now, and it bums me out. I'd much rather train on REO stuff, but until we start getting some more flow, I'm glad that this information is helpful. I'm gonna
How are you doing in Seattle with all